So as you look here, you can see that I have a path that goes around the woman. And if we look closely, there are several sections that really aren't very exact. So I can adjust those paths. If I select the pen tool, and if I have add and subtract selected up here in my options, I can grab the pen, hold down the command key, and activate the paths, and then go and reposition every path as needed. Any curve actually has two vectors that come out that allow me to adjust and readjust my path around that anchor point that's been set. Now the other thing, if you look right here, you can see that there's a curve here and then there's another curve here, but I can't make this bend and bend in with itself, so I need an additional anchor point to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this anchor point up and I'm going to move it over here. And I'm going to adjust this a little bit and pull this down and actually pull this out now that I'm looking at it. But I'm going to let go of the command key, and you'll notice that my cursor, when it rolls over the path here, you can see that it rolls over and has the pen tool with the little plus symbol next to it. That's going to allow me to add an additional anchor point to an existing path. So I'm going to click there, then hold the command key down again and readjust. And again, I have these two pivot points, and I'm going to adjust and adjust. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind is how close are you to the object, because at some point these extra details aren't going to matter. No one's going to see them. Somehow my path looks like it's all off here. So what I want to do is I want to look at this at roughly around 200% and then adjust it accordingly from there. Things that are very detailed, I of course want to be a little bit closer. So that's how you add and subtract points from an existing path. Now, if we look at the path palette, it has very similar choices as many of the other paths, such as layers. I'm going to activate my path that I want, which is the woman here, and we'll start off with the basics. Going at the middle here, there's a circle with a little marching ants around it. If we roll over, it says load path as selected, and that understandably makes a path. If I command D and select that path again, I have a couple other choices. To the left I have fill, and to the right of that I have stroke path with brush. What these do is they fill it based on the foreground color. So in this case we're going to make it red so you can see it, and so now I have a foreground over in my tools palette. I'm going to click this, and first we'll fill. So you can see that I've filled my path. This is also a good way to see how good your selection is, your path, and be able to make any changes. So when I hit Command Z, I'm going to go over here and I want to stroke the path. And you can see now I have a stroked red color that goes around. Now, what if I don't want a path that is quite that thick in my stroke path? Well, if we look here, I have no options. What this is actually being based on is, if I select my brush tool by hitting B on the keyboard, it's based on the size of the last brush tool chosen. So if I were to make this much smaller, then go back to here again, and now stroke the path, you can see I have a smaller red line. And again, all this is chosen, the color is based on the foreground color. So that's how you would adjust that. Now if I want to feather my selection, I need to go over to the right hand side, drop down menu, and say make selection. At the top of that make selection, you'll see feathering radius. And remember that you want to feather any edge of something that you're going to pick into something else. When you set this, this will be set for every future selection within the paths unless you change. So if I go 3, and this depends on your preferences. So now if I go like this, you can see that I have a nicely softly feathered edge. So if I want to plug this into something else, for instance make a double on this, we'll go like here, we'll make a selection, and I will paste this in. Make sure I have the right thing. There we go. Copy, paste. And now if I move her over, I have 2, and you can see that this edge is nice and soft, and she merges right into the background. Perhaps 3 pixels was a little bit much for the feather, but you get the idea. There are also a few other settings down here. So if I go here and I say under stroke path, I have a choice between brushes or other tools. And you see I have the sponge, the sharpen, the history brush. Whatever the last tool, however that setting was, is what it's going to use. So if I use healing brush and I say OK, could not use healing brush because nothing has been defined. So I have to go to my healing brush and say, alright, I'd like this point right there of my face. So I'm going to go over here, go and say stroke path, healing brush, OK. Now you see it took this point and applied using that brush to the existing image. So you get an idea that there are lots of ways to use a path, and some of the results you get, this is the only way that you can get them easily without a lot of hassle and to be uniform.